My parents always said my brother deserved more because he was the man of the house. When I bought my first home, they demanded I put it in his name. I refused and revealed a shocking truth they couldn't argue with. Hi, Reddit. I'm 29F, and honestly, I'm still reeling from everything that went down with my family over the past few months. I've debated posting this because it's still fresh, but I can't stop replaying the conversations in my head, especially the moment everything finally unraveled. I guess some backstory would help this make sense. I grew up in a pretty traditional household, the kind where my parents believed very firmly in roles. My brother Damon, 32M, was the oldest, and since he was the man of the house after our dad retired early due to health issues, he was treated like royalty. And me, I was expected to stay quiet, stay helpful, and stay in my lane. From as early as I can remember, Damon got the bigger room, the newest tech, the first plate of food, and basically everything. When we were teenagers, I started picking up part-time jobs while Damon played video games all day. But my parents would still praise him for being such a responsible young man. Meanwhile, I was the one helping mom cook and taking on extra shifts to afford my textbooks. I can't tell you how many times I heard the phrase, "You have to understand, honey. Damon's got a lot of weight on his shoulders. One day, he'll have to take care of all of us." Spoiler alert, he didn't. After high school, Damon flunked out of community college twice. He started a landscaping business that never really went anywhere and racked up a mountain of debt from tools and equipment he never used. My parents bailed him out twice. They made it sound like this was some noble sacrifice, like investing in Damon's future was the same as securing the family legacy. Meanwhile, I got into a decent state university with partial scholarships and paid my way through the rest working nights. I got a degree in digital marketing, landed a solid remote job, and after years of saving, I finally bought a house a few months ago. Not a mansion or anything, but it's mine. 2 bedrooms, small backyard, good bones. I cried when I signed the paperwork. I had done it completely on my own. I didn't tell my parents right away. Part of me didn't want to deal with their usual dismissiveness. And another part, I guess I wanted to keep this piece of happiness untouched for a while. But eventually, I invited them over to see it. I figured stupidly that maybe this time they'd be proud of me. They weren't. "Oh," my mom said when she stepped in. Her lips pursed like she smelled something sour. "It's smaller than I thought." Dad wandered around making non-committal noises. Damon didn't say anything at first. He just looked around with this tight, unreadable expression. I offered them tea and cookies I baked that morning, which my mom said were a little dry, and tried to ignore the knot growing in my stomach. Then Damon spoke. "So whose name is it under?" I blinked. "Mine. I bought it." He looked at our dad, then back at me. "Yeah, but like legally. Is it under your name, or is it under the family trust or something?" I laughed a little, thinking he was joking. "It's under my name. I don't have a trust. I paid the down payment myself." He looked genuinely confused. "Why wouldn't you put it under my name? I mean, I'm the one who's going to take care of mom and dad. You don't even live nearby." That's when my mom chimed in, setting her tea down way too hard on my coffee table. "Exactly. Damon is the man of the family. You have no idea how stressful it's been for him, watching out for all of us. It would mean a lot to give him that security." I just sat there stunned. It was like they had all gotten together and rehearsed this, like this was the natural next step in their minds. "I'm sorry," I said slowly, "but why would I give Damon the house I bought with my money?" My dad scoffed. "Don't be selfish, Tahia. It's not about the money. It's about doing the right thing. Damon has always been there for us. You ran off to do your own thing." "I ran off to get a job," I snapped. "One that pays enough to afford this house. Damon's still living in your basement." Damon stood up, face red. "I didn't come here to be insulted." I stood too, heart pounding. "And I didn't invite you here so you could try to guilt trip me out of the one thing I've worked yours for. You want to talk about stress? You want to talk about sacrifice? I did everything without help, and now that I have something to show for it, you think I owe you." My mom's eyes flashed. "You watch your tone, young lady." And that's when I realized something. They were never going to see me as anything but the backup plan, the extra, the one who's supposed to sacrifice. But I wasn't done yet. Not even close. The room was tense. Damon had his arms crossed, staring at me like I just kicked his dog. And my mom looked like she was about to start lecturing me about respect and gratitude. My dad had gone quiet, which is how I knew he was truly angry. He always defaulted to silence when he didn't get his way. I stood there, still holding the edge of the kitchen counter, trying to calm myself down before I said something I couldn't take back. My heart was racing, but in the middle of all the noise in my head, one thought cut through. They really believe I owe them this. I took a deep breath. There's something I haven't told you, I said, about the house, about a lot of things, actually. Mom narrowed her eyes. If this is about you being ungrateful again. It's not, I interrupted. Just let me finish. For a moment, no one said anything. Damon sat back down, but kept glaring at me like he was preparing his next argument. I walked over to the little bookshelf by the hallway and pulled out a plain blue folder I tucked behind some cookbooks. It wasn't flashy. I hadn't shown it to anyone yet, not even my closest friend, Elise, but I'd kept it close, waiting for the right moment. I handed it to my dad and sat down across from them. "What's this?" he asked, flipping it open. Inside were printed screenshots of my loan approval, the closing documents for the house, and the full breakdown of my savings and investments. Neatly labeled, highlighted in yellow and green. I had included a summary sheet too, showing where the money came from, every last sin I'd saved over the years, right down to my first internship check in college. "I didn't just buy a house," I said. "I paid off my student loans. I have a 6-month emergency fund, and I've been investing since I was 22. I've made smart choices. I've lived well below my means, and I didn't ask for a dime from any of you." My mom frowned. "We know you're good with money. What does that have to do with this?" I met her eyes. "It has everything to do with this. You all came here expecting me to hand something over to Damon just because he's the oldest, because he's the man of the house. But where was that house when I was pulling double shifts in college? When I was eating rice and canned beans for weeks to make rent?" Dad closed the folder and set it on the table. "We didn't know you were doing all that." "You didn't ask," I said quietly. Damon scoffed. "So what? You think a few smart choices make you better than the rest of us?" "No," I said calmly. "I think they make me independent, and that means I get to decide what I do with what I've earned." He leaned forward, tone sharp. "You're still part of this family. Families take care of each other." I nodded slowly. "I agree. So let's talk about that because there's something else you don't know." Mom shifted in her seat. "Tia, if this is just another way of saying you don't want to help your brother?" "No, it's more than that," I said, reaching for my phone on the table. I wasn't going to say anything. I really wasn't. I wanted to be kind and let things be. But if we're talking about who deserves what, then we need to have an honest conversation. I opened the gallery and scrolled to a photo I'd taken a few weeks earlier. It showed a letter on university letterhead, a name, a program, a date. I handed the phone to my mom, whose eyebrows pulled together the second she saw it. "What is this?" she asked. "It's Damon's university loan record from when you co-signed and paid off his second attempt at college." "The one he said he finished." She blinked. "Yes. What about it?" I looked at Damon. "You told them you graduated." He sat up straighter. "I did. I mean, technically you didn't," I said quietly. "I checked. You dropped out again after 2 semesters. You told them you had a degree. You lied." Dad looked up sharply. "That's not true. Damon, tell her she's wrong." Damon stood. "It's not a big deal. It was a community college degree. I didn't think I needed it once I started the business." Mom looked back at the screen. "You said you finished. We celebrated. You used my savings to pay for that. I added the money I had in my account from working in high school. You said it was a loan. You told me I'd get it back once Damon's business took off." My voice caught for a second, but I pushed through. That was 10 years ago. Silence. My dad rubbed his temples. My mom looked stunned. Damon, he looked annoyed. Not apologetic, not ashamed, just annoyed. "I was going to let it go," I said. "I figured maybe that was just the price I had to pay to get out. But then you all came in here and acted like I should hand over the one thing I've built because Damon deserves it more." I leaned back in my chair. "No, not anymore." That's when Damon snapped. He slammed his hand on the table, making my teacup rattle. You think you're better than me because you got some job and bought a little house? You think that makes you the big success story? He pointed at me, his face red. Now you owe this family everything. You wouldn't be where you are without us. I stared at him and something inside me just clicked. I stood slowly, steady and calm, and walked to the hallway. I opened a closet and pulled out a second folder, this one black and a little heavier. I turned to face them. This, I said, is what I owe you, and I'll show you exactly what it means. I walked back into the living room, the black folder in my hand. Damon was still standing, arms crossed again. My mom had gone pale, and my dad looked like he was trying to piece everything together without showing how confused he was. I sat down and laid the folder flat on the table between us. Every transaction from when you all borrowed my savings, the transfers from my account to Dad's name, the cash withdrawals Mom made with my ATM card when I was in high school because we needed groceries. Even though we all know I was the only one not eating fast food every night. Dad frowned. That was to help keep the lights on. You knew we were going through a rough patch. And I was a kid, I said. A kid who thought it was normal to give her parents her entire paycheck because she was told it was her responsibility. I kept records back then because I was scared. I didn't know how to say no, but I knew something didn't feel right. My mom's voice was thin, almost a whisper. You were just helping the family. That's what good daughters do. I looked straight at her. Good daughters don't get used. Good daughters don't have to prove their worth every year while their brother gets praised for waking up before noon. Damon scoffed again. This is pathetic. You're still holding on to stuff from what, 10 years ago? Grow up. You're right, I said softly. It was 10 years ago, and you know what I've done in that time? I've grown. I've worked. I've paid my dues, and I've planned. I'm not here to beg for fairness anymore. I'm here to protect myself from people who have shown me again and again that I'm only useful when I'm handing something over. They didn't say anything. I opened the folder. Inside were notarized statements, screenshots of bank activity, and at the very back, a letter from my lawyer. Yeah, I hired one, not because I wanted to sue anyone, but because I'd been thinking long term. After my house closed, I wanted to set up protections in case anything happened to me. I wanted my assets to go where I chose. And as I started writing out those instructions, I realized I needed to be really clear, especially when it came to my family. I'm not here to fight, I told them. I'm here to explain what's going to happen next and why. I passed the lawyer letter to my dad first. He opened it and scanned the first few lines before his expression changed. Subtle, but noticeable. His eyes flicked to Damon, then back to the page. Mom leaned over his shoulder. What is this? It's a legal notice. It states that any attempts to access, control, or lay claim to my property, financial or otherwise, without my consent, will result in formal action. Everything I've built is protected under my name alone. No shared accounts, no co-ownership, and no family agreements unless they're on paper and signed. Damon let out a dry laugh. You're acting like we're trying to rob you. I turned to him. You asked me to put my house in your name. You said I owed it to you. If that's not trying to take something from me, I don't know what is. He didn't laugh after that. I could tell my mom was still trying to find her footing. She always needed a version of the story that made her look like she was just trying to help. Tia, we didn't know you felt this way. If we had, maybe we could have handled things differently. I nodded. Maybe, but you didn't ask. You never asked how I was doing. You just assumed I'd fall in line. My dad finally spoke. So what now? You gonna cut us off completely? That hit me harder than I expected. A small part of me, a stupid lingering part, wanted to say no, that I still loved them, that we could fix this. But I didn't, because love without respect isn't safety. And I didn't feel safe with them anymore. No, I said, but things are going to be different. And they were, because what I didn't tell them, not yet, is that this house wasn't just for me. And that the person they always overlooked, the one they thought would never amount to anything. I had plans, big ones. And they were about to find out exactly how far I'd come from the girl they dismissed to the woman building something they could never touch. There was a strange kind of silence hanging in the room. Not the angry kind, not even the disappointed kind. It was the sort of silence that comes when people are finally starting to realize that the version of someone they had in their head isn't the person sitting in front of them anymore. I didn't feel the silence. I let it stretch. My mom kept looking between me and the letter in my dad's hands, like she was hoping someone would tell her it wasn't real, and that maybe it was just a warning, not something I'd actually go through with. Damon, though, he wasn't buying it. "You know what this is?" he said, finally sitting back down like he just solved a puzzle. "This is some kind of power trip. You finally get a little success, and you think you can lord it over everyone who helped raise you." Helped raise me. That phrase stuck in my throat. I raised myself. "Damon," I said quietly, "while you were dropping out and asking for second chances, I was working nights and studying during the day. I cooked my own meals. I did my own laundry. You got help every time you stumbled, and I was told to figure it out." He opened his mouth to fire back, but I held up a hand. "Don't," I said. "Don't turn this into something it's not. I'm not punishing anyone. I'm protecting myself. There's a difference." I took a slow breath. "And I'm not finished." I stood again, walked over to a drawer by the TV stand, and pulled out a thin envelope, handwritten, no fancy labels, just something I'd quietly worked on over the last 2 years. "I wasn't planning to show you this yet," I said, walking back over, "but I think now's the time." I placed it on the table just under the lawyer's letter. "This," I said, "is plan." Damon tilted his head. "Hey, what, a business plan?" I repeated. "For a wellness retreat, small scale, local, something I've been slowly building with the help of a few contacts I met through work. I've already scouted the location and secured early backing. I've got a mentor helping me through the legal steps, and I've been saving for the down payment on the land." Mom blinked. "But I thought this house was your big thing." "It's a stepping stone," I said. "Something I bought smart, renovated carefully, and will eventually rent out when I move to the property." Dad looked confused. "You're moving?" "Not yet," I said. "But I will. Once everything is ready, and when I do, I'll be the sole owner of a business, a rental property, and land that's fully paid off." I looked at Damon. "The same land you said was a waste of money when I mentioned it last year. The one you laughed at because it was too far from everything." He said nothing. "And here's the thing," I continued. "I'm doing all of it without handouts, without loans from family, and without tying myself to anyone who doesn't believe in what I'm building." My mom looked almost lost, like she didn't know how to respond to this version of me. "I didn't know you were working on all of this," she said. "I know," I replied, "because you never asked." There it was again, that silence. But this time it was a little heavier. My mom glanced at my dad, but he just sat back in his chair, folding his arms like someone who had finally realized the room wasn't his anymore. Damon gave a short laugh, but it wasn't amused, more bitter. "So what? You're cutting ties? Moving to the woods and pretending we don't exist?" I shook my head. "No, but I am drawing a line. I'm done bending over backwards to earn a seat at the table. If you want to be part of my life moving forward, it'll be on equal terms. No more guilt, no more expectations, just respect." He muttered something under his breath. But I didn't ask him to repeat it. Instead, I picked up the folder and business plan and began calmly putting them back in their places. I wasn't trying to impress them. I wasn't asking them to understand. I just wanted the truth out there so no one could twist it later. As I slid the folder back into the drawer, I turned to face them one last time. "I built this life on my own," I said, "and from now on, it stays mine, all of it." I watched their faces closely then, not because I wanted to gloat, but because I wanted to see who they really were when the illusion of control was gone. My dad stood up first. No words, just walked to the front door, grabbed his coat, and left. My mom stood more slowly. She looked at me like she was trying to solve a puzzle she'd never seen before. And maybe she was. "I didn't realize you were so angry," she said quietly. "I'm not angry," I replied. "I'm awake." And then she followed my dad out without saying goodbye. That left Damon still sitting at the table, jaw tight. He looked around my living room, the plants I'd cared for, the shelves I'd built, the art on the walls, mine, not generic prints. It was the first time I realized that even the house felt like me, like proof that I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was thriving. Damon stood and stepped closer. "You really think this is over?" he asked, eyes narrowed. You think you can just walk away and everything you did, everything we did as a family just disappears? I looked at him calmly. It's not over, I said. It's just finally beginning. After Damon stormed out that night, I expected things to quiet down. For a few days, they did. No calls, no texts, no passive-aggressive emails from my mom. Just silence. Then, like clockwork, it started again. Damon began spreading stories to the rest of the family, our aunts, uncles, cousins. He told them I had kicked our parents out, that I was hiding money, and had lost touch with family values. He made himself out to be the poor, loyal son who had sacrificed so much and was now being betrayed by his selfish sister. At first, a few people reached out, some genuinely concerned, others just fishing for drama. I calmly shared my side with those who actually listened. I didn't trash talk Damon or my parents. I didn't need to. The facts spoke for themselves, and the people who cared about me saw through the noise quickly. But Damon wasn't finished. About a month later, I got a notice from the county. Someone had filed a complaint about unpermitted renovations on my property. Specifically, the basement suite I'd finished last year. It was clearly Damon. He was the only one who had seen the new setup, and the timing was too perfect to be a coincidence. I wasn't panicked, though. I'd done everything by the book: permits, inspections, even receipts for the contractors. I contacted my lawyer, handed over the documents, and within a week, the complaint was dismissed. But that moment changed something in me. Damon wasn't just bitter. He was actively trying to sabotage me. And that meant I had to take things a step further. Remember the wellness retreat I was planning? I sped things up. I finalized the down payment on the land, filed the business license, and moved forward with a small team I'd been quietly assembling: friends from college, a retired yoga instructor I'd met through work, and a local gardener who helped me map out the property. Every person on the team wanted to be there. No ego, no drama, just purpose. A few months later, I moved. I didn't make a big announcement. I simply packed, rented out my house, and relocated to the retreat grounds. My house became an income property, stable, quiet, and fully mine. I had a property manager handle the day-to-day so I could focus on building the life I'd always wanted. I never gave Damon my new address. My parents tried a few more times to reach out. Messages that always started sweet but turned guilt-trippy halfway through. I didn't block them, but I didn't engage either. I responded once, letting them know I was safe, healthy, and focused on my goals. I told them if they ever wanted a real relationship, one built on honesty and respect, I was open to that, but only if they came without expectations or demands. That was the last time I heard from them directly. It's been over a year now. The retreat is running small but steady. We host weekend events and quiet weekday getaways. I spend mornings walking the trails and evenings watching the stars. I'm not rich by any means, but I'm peaceful. I'm free. Damon. Last I heard through a cousin, he tried to start a business of his own, asked my parents for another loan. It didn't work out. They sold their house and moved into a smaller place. My cousin hinted that there's been tension between them ever since. My parents realizing far too late that betting everything on one child while draining the other doesn't build the family they thought it would. Do I feel bad? Not really. I gave them more chances than most would. What I feel now is relief. Not just because I stood up for myself, but because I did it without becoming like them. I didn't tear anyone down. I didn't get even. I just got out and built something beautiful for myself in the process.